and the prosecution rests. Do you think that they understand how high of a burden beyond a reasonable doubt is? Because I think they may be in a little bit of trouble. Day 14 of Lindsay Clancy's trial wrapped up on Monday. It's a great day for a great day. My name is Sydney Rushing. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the state of Michigan. Now let's talk about it. Morning started off by the judge telling the jury that the Commonwealth would likely wrap up their case today, and then the defense would have an opportunity to put on their case. However, he did explain that the defense doesn't have to put on a case, and Chief, they don't have to just do anything because it's the prosecutor that has the burden. But if they do put on a case, then the prosecution has an opportunity to then rebut their case. And then witness number 71, Ian Whiffen, was called to the stand. And yes, this is another person that we've seen testify before in the Karen Reed trial. He's a digital intelligence specialist with Cellbrite. He extracted and analyzed data from Lindsay's iPhone 13. He looked at data from a few weeks prior to the incident and up to the date of the incident. The phone tracked her steps and her heart rate. A report was shown to the jury showing her heart rate throughout that day. And her heart rate had fluctuated within that day from about 50 beats per minute up to 122 beats a minute. And then at 5:22, when the last one was taken, it was at 57 beats per minute. He said that it could have stopped at that time for a few reasons. The watch was taken off, the watch was turned off, or the battery died. Watching the phone recorded Lindsay climbing stairs at 5:33 and 5:38. Between the beginning of January and January 24th, there was approximately 1,300 records to which the report showed specific searches from each day from January 10th to January 24th. Some examples were January 12th, how quickly does Wellbutrin work for depression? January 18th, ketamine for unaliving ideation. January 19th, symptoms of postpartum psychosis and psychosis symptoms. And then at 4:13, Lindsay's phone mapped out a route to 3V restaurant on January 24th. Also on January 24th at 4:02 p.m., there was a search for kids Miralax. At 4:14, there was a takeout 3V search. At 4:47, there was a search for CVS Pharmacy. And then at 5:33, there was a call from Patrick to Lindsay that went unanswered. At 5:34, there was a call from Lindsay to Patrick that lasted about 14 seconds. And then at 6:09, there was a call from Patrick to Lindsay that was unanswered. He said that the last that the phone was unlocked was at 5:13, and it was locked 2 minutes later. During that time, the phone searched Pedialax and then texted Patrick Clancy about it. The data suggests that Lindsay climbed a flight of stairs before calling Patrick back. And then there was the morning recess. During cross-examination, he said that Lindsay's phone and watch stopped recording data at 5:23, but the last time it recorded stair climbing data was at 5:38, and after that, no more data was recorded until after the police took the phone. Reddington pointed out that Whiffen didn't know what was going on at 5:39. The phone could have been put down, the person could have been going up and down stairs still, they could have been doing push-ups, and you would never know, right? And he said correct. More internet searches were discussed, one from January 10th with the search about trazodone's interactions with Tylenol, and on January 12th, searches about sleep deprivation, unaliving ideation, medication, and depression, and Reddington said that it goes on and on with searches along those lines, right? And Whiffen said it does. They discussed and showed pictures that Lindsay had sent to her mom and Patrick Clancy, including Patrick responding saying that she was a good mom. Whiffen said that on January 25th, between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., Lindsay's phone data recorded 47 meters of travel, and Reddington said that Lindsay was in a coma in her hospital bed with tubes coming out of her and certainly not wearing an Apple Watch, so how did that happen? Whiffen said the phone could have recorded the steps and that Lindsay's phone was in police custody at the time. Then the prosecution rested. And I am still, after all of that, I am still confused about their strategy or what they think that they were doing, because I don't think that it was effective at all. They spoke more about Lindsay's mental health than they did about this being a premeditated unaliving with no mental health causes or issues. Truthfully, I just don't think that they got the jury where they want them to be, but I guess we will see. And then Reddington moved for the court to enter a verdict of not guilty, saying the evidence presented showed that Lindsay was clearly suffering from a mental disease and defect. Prosecution objected and said basically the right time for this motion is after the close of evidence, which includes the defense's case. Judge denied the motion and the defense called their first witness. Defense witness number 1, or number 72 if you're counting, is Meg Hamp. She's a labor and delivery nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital. She worked with Lindsay Clancy for about 7 years. Lindsay loved being a nurse, was compassionate, kind, a patient advocate. She was the kind of nurse you'd want taking care of you or a family member. Lindsay would often be moved to tears by the emotional impact of helping assist with childbirth. She would talk to her fellow nurses about parenting. She spoke of one instance where Lindsay would monitor the kids while she was working overnight. Cora was crying and Lindsay called Patrick and he didn't answer, so she got even more worried. So she called the police to do a wellness check. On cross-examination, she confirmed that nothing was wrong that night when the police did the wellness check, and she confirmed that Zoloft is a safe medication for pregnant mothers. On redirect, she said that she spoke with Lindsay about mental health during pregnancy and postpartum, and when she asked Lindsay if she knew about the Andrea Yates case, Lindsay cried and asked how could a mother hurt her children. Defense witness number 2, or number 73, was Allison Ozga. That's Lindsay's sister. Lindsay told her in December that she was feeling numb and hopeless and having unaliving ideation every day that month. After her hospital stay, Lindsay told her that she was starting to feel better and optimistic. She described Lindsay as not being a complainer and that she didn't really share the details of her medical care. During Cora's birthday, she felt like Lindsay was just kind of going through the motions of throwing a birthday party, but overall she looked tired and like that she was still struggling. Once she received call about the incident, she immediately packed a bag and went to the hospital to be with her parents. She explained that her parents basically lived out of hotels and stayed up there for a while. On cross-examination, when asked about Lindsay's tone after she checked out of the hospital, and she said it basically in the text, she seemed to be okay, making it known that she didn't hear Lindsay saying it, but through the text, she thought she was okay. She said she never felt concerned that Lindsay would hurt herself or the kids, and that she's a mandatory reporter as a licensed social worker. Defense witness number 3, or number 74 overall, was Paula Musgrove. That's Lindsay's mom. She said she loved her grandkids with all her heart, saying it's the most beautiful thing to experience becoming a grandma. She described Lindsay as a fun, dedicated mom who's always wanted a big family, and how becoming a mom was the best thing to happen to her. In the summer of 2022, Patrick and Lindsay were happy. She started to notice a change in Lindsay in about October. She seemed really anxious and was anxious about going back to work and leaving Callan. On October 20th, Lindsay texted her mom, "Mom, will you please come up and stay with me for a bit? I'm really sick and something is wrong." And she spoke about having trouble sleeping and how her meds were making things worse. "I'm really scared and I don't want to be alone." Mom did what moms do. She went up and stayed for a week. After her hospital stay, Mom says that Lindsay lost a bunch of weight and had grown paranoid. She would say that this wasn't her mind, this isn't me, I've never been like this before, and Lindsay was afraid to drive. In December, Lindsay told her and Patrick Clancy that she had something to tell them, and she seemed really nervous, and she told them that she had thoughts of harming the kids. Then there was the afternoon recess, and then they came back on her cross-examination. She couldn't recall the exact date that Lindsay told her and Patrick that she had thoughts of harming the kids, but that it was in early to mid-December. When Patrick asked Lindsay if she couldn't be left alone with the kids, Lindsay said no. She didn't have thoughts to commit Lindsay or having Lindsay move to Connecticut to be away from the kids, and she didn't feel like the kids were in danger because she was there. She traveled back and forth a few times in January from Connecticut to Duxbury. The prosecutor showed some texts from Lindsay to her discussing how she would be leaving the hospital the next day, how she was going to the Science Museum, and that she slept well one night with less Ativan. She said that Lindsay and her talked daily, and she did daily check-ins in January. January 18th text, she said that she felt okay, but not great, but better than 2 weeks prior. She said that she was home from January 7th to January 21st, and on January 21st, she went to stay with Lindsay. She then texted Lindsay on January 22nd and said she was going home, saying how she enjoyed seeing everyone and that it was nice to see everyone doing better. She provided some more context, saying that she was trying to encourage Lindsay, not necessarily what she actually saw that weekend. "I was encouraging her to do things with the kids and try to get back to normal." When asked if she told police on January 25th that Lindsay seemed to be improving in January, she said that she was in shock and didn't recall saying that, but if it's in the record, then she must have said it. Then the defense called witness number 3, or number 75 overall, Dr. Michael Volfovich. He's an emergency medical doctor at Newton Wesley Hospital. He reviewed photos of the crime scene and the records from the 2 hospitals. He said when Lindsay arrived at South Shore, she was not very responsive and required intubation. She was hypothermic, her heart rate exceeded 100 beats per minute, and her blood pressure dropped below normal. She was stabilized at South Shore and then moved to Brigham Women's. He said that she had superficial and full thickness lacerations. He described superficial as scrapes and full thickness as penetrating through the upper layer of skin and into the fatty layer. He has treated multiple patients who attempted or successfully unalived themselves by cutting their throats. He described Lindsay's neck injuries as being consistent with self-injurious behavior. He described her spine injuries as multiple fractures to her cervical spine and thoracic spine and a burst fracture of her C1 vertebrae. And then at Brigham and Women's, she went into complete cardiac arrest. She also had a blood transfusion and had approximately 300 cubic centimeters of blood removed from both sides of her chest. And after that, he was thanked and excused. In day 14, the end of the prosecutor's case in chief and the beginning of the defense's case in chief is now in the books. Thank you for being here and thank you for following along. And here's the question of the day. Do you think that the prosecutor met her burden of beyond a reasonable doubt, or do you think she's going to fall short? Let me know in the comments.